Welcome, my dear listener. Tonight, I invite you to rest, to close your eyes gently, or let them linger half open in the hush of your room. This story is not meant to excite or to stir, but to soothe, to calm, to slow your breath as if it were moving with the rhythm of quiet water. Imagine yourself wrapped in soft stillness, the air warm and gentle around you, like steam rising in calm spirals. Will drift together into a story of reflections, of quiet longing, of a love so tender it feels less like discovery and more like remembrance. So settle in, let the weight of the day fall from your shoulders, and allow the gentle hush of this tale to guide you toward peace. Anna had always loved places that held whispers of time. Hidden among winding cobblestone streets, there stood an ancient bathhouse, its walls worn smooth by centuries of warmth and steam. Few visited it anymore, save for those who cherished quietude. The air inside was always soft, always heavy with mist that curled and drifted like silk in the stillness. Each step echoed lightly, the sounds swallowed by warmth, the pools shimmered. Lanterns reflected in their glass-like surfaces, and everywhere along the tiled walls stood mirrors old, silvered, and strange. They never showed what was expected. Sometimes they seemed delayed, showing her smile a second later than her lips curved. Sometimes they blurred gently, as if remembering another time entirely. On a wood visit often, slipping into the calm water, listening to the low trickle of hidden springs. She never hurried here. The bathhouse seemed to invite a slower rhythm, one that asked nothing of her but presence. And yet, when her gaze lifted to those mirrors, she often felt a soft take, a question she could not name. There was something in the glass, a hush, a familiarity as though it wanted to remind her of something long forgotten. She would trace her fingers along the edges of the frame, damp from steam and wonder. Who else had stood here? Who else had been seen in centuries past? And why, when she looked into her own eyes in the misted glass, did she sometimes feel less like she was seeing herself, and more like she was waiting for someone? Her visits became rituals. She would let the water cradle her body, close her eyes, and drift between waking and dreaming. And always, when she opened them again, she found her reflection waiting, patient, softened, as though it had lingered just a little longer, holding something she could not yet see. There was no fear in it, only tenderness, only the quiet longing of a memory she had not yet remembered. And so, night after night, on a return to that ancient bathhouse, to the mirrors and the steam, listening for what might one day answer her silence. It was on a foggy evening, when the air outside was cool enough to sting her cheeks, that Anna slipped once again through the carved wooden doors of the bathhouse. Inside, the warmth greeted her instantly, curling against her skin, loosening her breath. The lanterns flickered, their flames trembling gently, and the mirrors along the tiled walls shone softly in the haze, as if lit from within. She moved as she always did and hurried, reverent, almost letting her fingertips brush along the smooth stone ledges as she approached the pools. Her shawl slipped from her shoulders, fabric whispering against her arms before she laid it neatly aside. The water shimmered, still and waiting, and she sank into it with a slow sigh, closing her eyes as the steam gathered around her face. For a time there was nothing but stillness, the sound of trickling water, the delicate breath of the bathhouse itself, as if it too inhaled and exhaled with her. And then something shifted when Anna opened her eyes, her reflection in the mirror. Across from her was already smiling. Her lips had not moved. She was certain of it. And yet the glass seemed to carry a softness she had not given. She leaned closer, letting the mist part slightly around her. The reflection's gaze felt different tonight, warmer, familiar, as though the mirror itself was holding not her face, but the memory of someone who had once looked upon her with love. Her breath slowed. The longer she stared, the less it felt like she was looking at her own features, and the more it felt like meeting someone who knew her. Deeply, quietly, without need for words, the steam curled upward like silk ribbons, veiling and unveiling her reflection until the image seemed to breathe with her. She touched the surface of the water gently, and in the mirror the smile deepened, soft, tender, almost wistful. It felt like recognition, not of the present but of something once lived. Anna sat very still, her hand resting on the ledge of the pool, the warmth holding her as if to steady her heart. She did not speak. She did not need to. For the first time, the mirrors seemed less like enigmas and more like companions. And tonight, one of them had remembered something for her, something she had not yet named. As the hour drifted on, she leaned back against the stone, her gaze never leaving the reflection that smiled before she did. A smile that felt like a promise, suspended between then and now, and in that quiet, Anna began to wonder. Was she truly alone here? The bathhouse was quieter than ever that evening. Only the soft sound of water moving gently through hidden channels filled the air. The lanterns burned lower, their glow stretched and softened by steam, as though the room itself was falling into a kind of dream. Anna sat near the edge of the pool, her arms resting loosely on the ledge. Her gaze lingered on the mirror before her, still carrying that tender, unbidden smile. It was a comfort now no longer strange, no longer unsettling, but soothing, like the memory of a voice she had once loved hearing. The steam curled higher, folding into shapes that shifted, stretched, and dissolved. And slowly, in that hazy veil, Anna felt a change. At first, it was only presence. A quiet weight in the air, like the sense of someone standing behind her, not intrusive but gentle. Her reflection seemed to know it too. The smile deepened, softened, as though it belonged to more than her alone. Anna turned her head slightly, and through the blur of mist, she saw him. A man standing near the far side of the pool, not stepping forward, not speaking, simply there. His outline was softened by steam, his features touched by the shifting glow of lantern light. But his eyes, even at that distance, seemed to know her. They were steady, calm, filled with a warmth that met her in silence. And in that stillness, she did not feel alarm. She felt recognition. Her breath slowed as though her body understood what her mind could not yet name. The man inclined his head slightly, the kind of movement that carried no urgency, no need to be answered. Only acknowledgement. She lowered her gaze for a moment, then looked back and found him still there, patient as though he had all the time in the world. For long minutes they did not speak. The bathhouse was filled only with the hushed sound of water and the faint hum of warmth, the kind that quieted every thought. Anna lifted her hand and brushed the surface of the pool. Ripples trembled outward, soft circles that caught the lantern light. She watched them, but out of the corner of her eye, she noticed he, too, was touching the water. Their movements mirrored, unplanned, and yet perfectly aligned the reflection. In the glass caught both of them, now her, and the figure who stood in the mist. Their images seemed to belong together, as if the mirror had been waiting for this very moment to remember them side by side. And Anna realized, with a hush that wrapped around her heart, that perhaps she had not been waiting alone. The man did not move closer. He did not need to. His presence was enough, a gentle, steady companionship that filled the bathhouse with something warmer than steam. And when she closed her eyes briefly, breathing in the hush, she felt it, as though the water, the mirrors, and the air itself were softly whispering, "You are not forgotten." The hours in the bathhouse always seemed slower than elsewhere, as if time itself softened within the warmth of its pools. That night, Anna felt the stillness deepen around her, wrapping her in quiet safety. The man remained across the water, the steam folding around him like drifting silk. His outline wavered with each curl of mist, sometimes clear, sometimes hidden, as though he belonged as much to memory as to the present moment. Anna did not speak, and neither did he. But silence here was no emptiness, it was fullness, a presence that grew with every shared breath. Her gaze shifted back to the mirror, and for the first time she saw not her own reflection alone. The glass held the two of them, side by side. Not blurred, not delayed, but complete, as though the mirror had been waiting for this very joining. Her heart slowed into a rhythm that felt older than the evening, a rhythm that seemed to remember. The smile in the reflection was no longer just hers, no longer just his. It was something they shared, an echo of a love that had rested in the bathhouse long before this night. She touched the water again, her fingertips making small ripples that glimmered in lantern light. Across the pool, he did the same. There. Gestures folded together like halves of the same thought. In that moment, Anna understood. This was not their first meeting. Perhaps not in this lifetime, perhaps not in this form, but their souls had known each other in still water before. In some quiet elsewhere, where reflections were not tricks of glass, but truths of the heart. The mirrors had remembered when she could not. They had carried the love forward, holding it until both souls returned to claim it. Anna leaned back against the warm stone, her eyes misted with the haze of steam and the softness of recognition. The man remained still, patient, his gaze steady, and kind of gaze that did not ask or demand, but simply was. And she realized this was why she had come night after night, drawn by a longing she could never quite name. She had been waiting to remember him. No words passed between them. None were needed. The steam curled upward, the lanterns flickered, and in the mirror their reflections stood together, whole at last. As the bathhouse exhaled its timeless hush. Anna felt no urgency, no fear of losing this moment. The love between them was not new, and it was not fleeting. It was the kind of love that drifts gently between lifetimes, resting in reflections until it is remembered again. The bathhouse had grown quieter still. The trickle of the springs was hushed, the lanterns dimmed to a low amber glow, and the steam hung in the air like a soft veil, drifting gently between stone and water. Anna moved slowly, lifting herself from the pool. The warmth clung to her skin, tiny droplets shimmering in the muted light. She reached for a simple linen cloth, smoothing it across her arms with an unhurried grace. When she turned, the man was closer. Not sudden, not startling, simply nearer, as though the steam itself had guided him to her side. His steps were soundless on the damp tiles. He sat beside her at the edge of the pool, leaving a respectful space between them. For a long moment, neither spoke. They didn't need to. The silence carried more than words could hold. Together, they watched the surface of the water calm, shimmering faintly under lantern light. The steam curled around them both, folding like memory, like threads of something familiar and kind. Anna felt her breath steady into a rhythm that matched his. A quiet companionship settled between them, soft as the cloth she held loosely in her lap. From time to time, their eyes met, not searching, not questioning, simply resting there. Each glance lingered gently, like the brush of fingertips without touch. And in that silence, she felt the peace of recognition deepen. The mirrors had remembered for her. The water had carried the memory. And now she no longer needed to wonder. The ache she had once felt in this place, the quiet longing, the unanswered question was soothed, not by explanations, not by stories, but by presence. Side by side they sat, letting the warmth cradle them, letting the hush of the bathhouse soften every thought. There was no rush, no need for tomorrow. Only this: the steam, the water, the quiet joining of souls long entwined. Anna leaned the slightest bit closer, her shoulder brushing the barest edge of his arm. He did not move away, he only turned. His gaze toward her, his expression tender, his stillness saying what words could not. It was enough. It was everything. The bathhouse seemed to exhale with them, the air filled with a deep, timeless calm. And in that peace, Anna knew she had found what she had been waiting for: not discovery, but remembrance. Not a beginning, but a return. The night deepened outside, though within the ancient bathhouse, time felt stilled, suspended like mist upon the water. The lanterns burned lower, their glow soft and golden, flickering gently across stone and steam. Anna and the man sat together at the pool's edge, the hush of the springs singing softly around them. Neither felt the need to move, nor to fill the silence. The stillness was enough. The mirrors along the walls shimmered faintly, fogged with warmth, yet in their depths the reflections did not fade. Anna glanced toward one of them, and there they were, she and he, side by side, not blurred, not fractured, but whole. Their mirrored selves seemed to rest against one another more fully than their bodies dared, as if the glass itself remembered their closeness even when they only sat quietly apart. Her breath deepened, slowing into the rhythm of sleep. The rise and fall of her chest matched the water's gentle laps against stone, and each time she glanced back at the mirror, she found her reflection leaning, resting softly against his. The sight made her eyes grow heavy, soothed by the knowledge that somewhere in memory, in glass, in the folds of time, they were already complete. The steam curled upward, dissolving into the rafters like threads of forgotten dreams. Shadows danced softly across the walls, delicate as lullabies. The entire room seemed to hum in quiet blessing. Anna closed her eyes, her hand resting loosely near his upon the warm stone ledge. She felt the faintest brush of his fingers against hers, not grasping, not pressing, only touching enough to remind her she was not alone. And when she opened her eyes once more, it was only to see the final glow of lantern light glistening in the mirrors. The reflections lingered, holding each other with a stillness that did not depend on time. As the bathhouse dimmed, Anna let her head bow slightly, her body swaying toward rest. The man's presence was steady, quiet, safe. The mirrors grew softer, their silver surfaces dimming like the last light of dusk, until all that remained was the calm of water, the hush of steam, and the certainty of a love that would wait patiently, endlessly, to be remembered again. And so the night drifted on, carrying Anna, carrying him, carrying you, dear listener, into the hush of dreams. Let your breath follow the rhythm of this quiet place. Let the warmth hold you. Let the reflections cradle you until your own eyes close gently. For love, like water, like mirrors, will always wait, softly, silently, forever remembered.